Hi everybody. Today I want to talk about how I, Miss Apple, communicates with her mitochondria. Now, I speak to my mitochondria all the time to activate my energy levels, to enlighten my imagination, my creativity, my stamina, blah, 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 energy. So this is what I do. In the morning, I go for a walk with my puppy, with Benjamin Roosevelt. And during our walk, we see nature everywhere. If I see Fibonacci sequences around us, let's say in a leaf, like the spiral, or in a flower, I can see the Fibonacci sequence. I see the Fibonacci sequence, and I immediately imagine that I take the Fibonacci sequence from the inspired object and I insert it into my mitochondria. And then I imagine that that is spread in all my mitochondria. And then if I have mm, if I have trouble imagining all of my mitochondria because there's so many trillions and trillions of cells, then I imagine that I am magnified and I compare my body as if I were the planet Earth. So I imagine that there is like a holographic energy around the planet, and I imagine all the heat from the center of from the planet going all the way up to the North Pole, meeting heat with cold, red with blue, which is purple, and then holographic purple, and then holographic light, and then holographic water. And then as soon as I imagine that my body is holographic and is liquidy like water, then that's when I start imagining that I radiate light into the universe, into the cosmos, to the galaxy, and I imagine that I'm becoming like very holographic and that my mitochondria is absorbing the Fibonacci sequence from the object that I was focused on. Now, if you think about a different focal object of inspiration with the Fibonacci sequence, instead of a flower with the Fibonacci sequence, you imagine a snowflake, let's say, then that is even more exciting because you can play, let's say you can play and switch and change um, to a different object that contains the Fibonacci sequence, and then it gets very exciting. And then I do different possibilities of different objects inside of my mitochondria. So I imagine the flower inside of my mitochondria. I imagine the snowflake, and I imagine the details of all the perfect, beautiful snowflakes, geometry, sequence, beauty, um, crystal clearness, and then I imagine it inside my mitochondria, and then inside of all my mitochondria, and as soon as it starts to evaporate in little particles of air, then that's when I imagine the entire planet Earth, and I imagine that the heat from the equator goes all the way to the heat of the North Pole, and on the North Pole, heat and cold meet, and they create like this like vortex of creation. I'm quoting Abraham Hicks. And then this musicality that is implied in all this joyful imaginative process happens when I intentionally imagine the Fibonacci sequence, the perfect geometry, the golden ratio inside my mitochondria. And as soon as I have that process activated, I start imagining that I am holographic, very holographic. Now, dear Dr. Catherine Clinton also talks about fascia. Fascia to me is like she shows images in her Instagram about the spider web. And it's very interesting because now that I'm being like a content creator on YouTube and social media more than ever before, I imagine that fascia is like this spider web in our body, which is a map similar to that of the World Wide Web. So once again, we are on different layers, on different points of view from our different perspectives. We always end up being very mirror-like to the outside, let's say. Even concepts that we as humans create, like the World Wide Web, or yeah, like there is always like this analogy within our body. That's what I feel. So, yeah, long story short, this is how I communicate to my mitochondria, and it's working. Bye. See you soon. I hope to meet you soon, Dr. Catherine Clinton. Bye.